On July 7, 1968, one of Harlem's most feared and respected figures walked into a restaurant like it was any ordinary night. But before sunrise, Bumpy Johnson would be dead. No shootout, no revenge attack, no dramatic gangster ambush, just a sudden collapse in front of the people who knew him best. And the truth behind his final night is even more shocking than the legend. Ellsworth Raymond "Bumpy" Johnson was born in Charleston, South Carolina in 1905. As a child, he moved to Harlem, where he eventually became one of the most powerful figures in New York's underworld. He first rose through Harlem's numbers racket under Stephanie St. Clair, famously known as the Queen of the Policy Rackets. Later, Bumpy made an alliance with Italian mob boss Charles "Lucky" Luciano. That agreement allowed Bumpy to control Harlem's criminal operations independently, while paying a share of the profits to the Italian mafia. But Bumpy was more than just a feared gangster. Many Harlem residents also remembered him as a man who gave food, gifts, and money to poor families. That contradiction made him almost impossible to understand. To some people, he was a criminal kingpin. To others, he was a protector. In 1951, Bumpy Johnson was convicted in a heroin conspiracy case and sentenced to 15 years in prison. Much of that sentence was served at Alcatraz. But prison did not erase his influence. According to historical accounts, Bumpy spent his time studying American history and playing chess. When he was released in 1963, Harlem had changed. The neighborhood he once controlled was facing poverty, political unrest, and an expanding drug trade. Bumpy was older now, but his reputation had not disappeared. He was still watched closely by law enforcement. In 1967, he was under federal indictment on charges connected to narcotics imported from Peru. At the time of his death, he was free on $50,000 bail. And then came his final night. In the early hours of Sunday, July 7, 1968, Bumpy Johnson was dining with friends at Wells Restaurant in Harlem. The restaurant was located at 2249 7th Avenue, in the neighborhood he had ruled for decades. There was no confirmed assassination attempt. No gunman entered the restaurant. No rival gang stormed through the door. Instead, Bumpy was suddenly stricken while eating with people close to him. Some biographical accounts describe the cause as a heart attack and say he died in the arms of his childhood friend, Junie Bird. However, the contemporary New York Times report focused on what was officially documented. Bumpy became seriously ill at Wells Restaurant, was rushed to Harlem Hospital, and was pronounced dead there. He was 62 years old. The man who had survived prison, gang wars, police surveillance, and decades in New York's underworld was gone within hours. Hollywood later portrayed Bumpy Johnson in films and television shows, including American Gangster and The Godfather of Harlem. But viewers should be careful. These productions mix real history with fictionalized storytelling. The popular image of Bumpy's death often includes dramatic final words, secret betrayals, or highly specific details about his last meal. Some of those details circulate online, but they are not clearly confirmed by the contemporary newspaper record. What is documented is far more powerful. Bumpy Johnson died suddenly while dining with friends at a Harlem restaurant. He was taken to the hospital and died at a moment when federal authorities were still pursuing him. His life ended quietly, but the entire city understood what his death meant. Bumpy Johnson's funeral was held at St. Martin's Episcopal Church on 122nd Street and Lenox Avenue. The New York Times reported that thousands came to pay their respects. Police officers were stationed around the area, watching the crowd from nearby rooftops. Why? Because Bumpy Johnson's legend was so powerful that authorities were prepared for anything. Even in death, They treated him like a man who could still command Harlem. For decades, Bumpy had lived between two worlds: crime and community, fear and respect, violence and generosity. That is why his story continues to fascinate people today. Bumpy Johnson did not die in a gangster shootout. He died suddenly, surrounded by friends, in the neighborhood that had made him famous. But the real shock is this: even after his death, his name remained more powerful than many men who were still alive. Was Bumpy Johnson a ruthless criminal, a community protector, or both? Tell us your opinion in the comments. And if you want more true stories from America's hidden underworld, subscribe now, because the next story may be even darker.